The Psychology of Fighting What You Cannot Win, the Michael J. Fox story. There is a particular kind of courage that most people never have to discover in themselves, not the courage of a single dramatic moment, not the courage of a battlefield decision made in a flash of adrenaline, but the quiet, grinding, daily courage of waking up every morning and choosing to continue fighting something that will never fully go away, something that takes more from you each year than it took the year before, something that the best minds in medicine still cannot cure. This is the courage that Michael J. Fox has been living for over 30 years, and the psychology behind how he has done it, how any human being survives and even thrives inside a reality that most of us would find unendurable, is one of the most profound and instructive stories in modern life. To understand what Michael J. Fox has faced, you first have to understand what Parkinson's disease actually does to a person. It is a progressive neurological disorder that attacks the brain's ability to produce dopamine, the chemical that controls smooth and coordinated body movement. Over time, it causes tremors, rigidity, and the kind of unpredictable physical instability that makes even the simplest movements require enormous concentration. It is degenerative, meaning it does not stay the same. It gets worse, and it has no cure. When Michael J. Fox was diagnosed in 1991, he was 29 years old. He was at the absolute peak of his career. He was beloved by millions. He was Marty McFly, the time-traveling teenager from Back to the Future who had made an entire generation feel the impossible thrill of adventure and possibility. And then, quietly and without warning, his future began to change shape in ways he had never imagined. The first psychological battle that any person faces when they receive a devastating diagnosis is the battle against denial, and it is important to understand that denial in its early stages is not weakness. It is a necessary protection. The human mind cannot absorb catastrophic information all at once. It processes shock gradually, in layers, allowing the person to adjust to a new reality without being destroyed by it in a single moment. Michael J. Fox kept his diagnosis private for 7 years after receiving it. 7 years of acting on television and in films while managing a condition that was slowly making acting more difficult. 7 years of presenting the world with the version of himself he believed the world needed to see, while privately beginning the long process of coming to terms with a truth he was not yet ready to share. Psychologists who study coping mechanisms describe this early period not as dishonesty but as necessary psychological incubation, a time when the person is quietly reorganizing their internal world before they can present their new reality to the external one. But denial, however necessary in the beginning, has a cost. The cost that Michael J. Fox paid was a period of self-medication and depression that he has spoken about publicly with remarkable honesty. When we cannot accept a painful reality, we find ways to avoid feeling it, and the more we avoid feeling it, the more it grows in the dark, untended, and unexamined. The psychology of avoidance is one of the most well-documented phenomena in all of mental health research. What we run from does not shrink, it grows. It fills more and more of the psychological space we are trying to protect. And at some point, the gap between the reality we are living and the story we are telling ourselves becomes too wide to maintain. That breaking point, painful as it is almost always the beginning of genuine healing. For Michael J. Fox, that turning point came in the mid-1990s. He stopped running. He faced what was in front of him. He reconnected with his family, his wife Tracy Pollan and their children, and he began the slow and extraordinary process of building a life that was not organized around denying his condition but around something far more powerful, accepting it fully and then deciding what to do with that acceptance. This is the psychological concept that the Austrian psychiatrist Viktor Frankl spent his entire career writing about. Frankl, who survived Nazi concentration camps, argued that the last of the human freedoms is the freedom to choose one's attitude. In any given set of circumstances, that between stimulus and response there is always a space, and in that space lives our power to determine our own meaning. Michael J. Fox did not choose Parkinson's disease, but he chose what Parkinson's disease would mean, and that single choice changed everything that followed. In 2000, he founded the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research. He testified before Congress. He used his fame, the very fame that had been built on his physical charm and comedic timing, to draw attention to a disease that affected millions of people who had none of his visibility or resources. His foundation has now funded more than $2.5 billion in Parkinson's research. Think about that number for a moment. One person, working from inside the very disease he was trying to fight, redirected more than $2.5 billion toward finding a cure for it. This did not happen because he was lucky. It happened because he made a decision about what his suffering would be used for. The psychologists who study post-traumatic growth describe a particular pattern in people who emerge from devastating experiences not merely intact but actually expanded and deepened. They describe how certain people, after passing through the darkest period of their loss, arrive at a place where they can integrate the experience into a larger and more meaningful sense of who they are. They are not the same person they were before the crisis. They are more. They have access to depths of empathy, patience, and purpose that were simply not available to them before life broke them open. This appears to be what happened to Michael J. Fox. He has said in interviews that Parkinson's, while it has taken things from him that he grieves openly and genuinely, has also given him things he would not trade. It gave him clarity about what actually matters. It stripped away the noise and the vanity that come with fame and left something cleaner beneath. It forced him to develop a relationship with uncertainty that most people spend their entire lives successfully avoiding. There is a concept that appears in many philosophical traditions under different names but describes the same psychological reality. The idea that the suffering that comes from pain itself is one thing, but the additional suffering that comes from our resistance to pain, from telling ourselves that this should not be happening, that things should be different from what they are, that secondary suffering is the product of our own minds, and it is optional. It is not easy to release, but it is possible, and the people who manage to release it, who learn to feel the pain without fighting against the reality that created it, discover something remarkable on the other side. They discover a kind of peace that does not depend on circumstances, a peace that is available even inside a body that does not cooperate, even inside a life that has taken away what seemed irreplaceable. Michael J. Fox has spoken in interviews about his relationship with gratitude, and his version of gratitude is not the shallow kind that social media promotes. It is not the gratitude of pretending everything is fine. It is the gratitude that comes from genuinely seeing what remains when something has been taken away, when you know what it is like to lose something, you know what it is like to have had it, and that knowledge transforms your relationship with everything that you still have. The ordinary, unremarkable moments of a day that you would never have noticed before your illness made them feel precious. Parkinson's disease, in a brutal and ironic way, gave Michael J. Fox access to a depth of appreciation for ordinary life that most people, living comfortably inside their taken-for-granted health, never reach. In 2020, Michael J. Fox announced his retirement from acting. Parkinson's had progressed to the point where memorizing lines had become too difficult. For many people, this would have felt like the final surrender, the last thing connecting him to the identity that had defined him for decades, taken away by a disease that had already taken so much. But then in 2026, something unexpected happened. He came back. He appeared in the third season of the Apple TV series Shrinking, playing a character who shares a Parkinson's diagnosis with Harrison Ford's character. And what brought him back was not money or vanity. It was meaning. He watched the show and felt that something authentic was being said about the experience of living with this disease, and he wanted to be part of that truth. This is the psychology of meaning-making at its most vivid. The person who has integrated their suffering does not experience it as purely loss. It becomes the very source of their most distinctive value. Michael J. Fox can speak about Parkinson's with an authority and authenticity that no healthy person can access. He carries it naturally. He has earned it through decades of genuine engagement with everything the disease has asked of him, and audiences respond to that authenticity with something that transcends ordinary admiration. They recognize in him the capacity they hope they would have if life brought them something they could not fix, the capacity to continue, to find meaning, to show up. Harrison Ford said that what made Fox essential to the show was his courage, his fortitude, and his grace. Three words that together describe something psychology has been trying to name for as long as the field has existed. The combination of fully facing reality without flinching, continuing to function and even to create within that reality, and doing so with a quality of presence that does not ask others to manage your suffering for you. This combination is not common. Some people are crushed by what they face, some become bitter, some contract into a smaller and harder version of themselves, but some emerge from hardship enlarged, and Michael J. Fox, by every available evidence, is one of those people. The research on resilience suggests that the difference between people who are broken by adversity and those who grow through it is not primarily the severity of what they faced. It comes down to four psychological factors. First, the ability to find or construct meaning from suffering. Second, the possession of strong relationships and a sense of belonging to something larger than oneself. Third, the belief that while you cannot control everything that happens to you, you can always control how you respond. And fourth, a radical acceptance of reality that does not require pretending things are fine, but does require releasing the demand that they be different. Michael J. Fox's life illustrates every single one of these factors with extraordinary clarity. What can the rest of us take from this? Not all of us will face Parkinson's disease, but all of us will face something that takes from us what we thought was ours permanently. Something that rewrites the story we were living and forces us to construct a new one from whatever remains. And the question that Michael J. Fox's life poses to each of us is whether we can do what he did, whether we can pass through the denial and the grief and arrive somewhere that resembles the life we would choose, even from inside a reality we did not choose, whether we can find, as Frankl would say, the last freedom that no circumstance can ever take away, the freedom to decide what our story means. The research suggests that more of us can do this than we imagine. The capacity for post-traumatic growth, for radical acceptance, for meaning-making in the face of loss, is not the exclusive property of extraordinary people. It is a human capacity. It is present in all of us, and the conditions that call it forward are not the absence of pain. They are the presence of the right kind of engagement with pain. The willingness to feel it fully, to examine it honestly, to refuse the escape of denial or bitterness, and to keep asking even inside the worst of it what this means and what can still be built with it. Michael J. Fox has been asking that question for 35 years, and what he has shown us is that losing and being defeated are not the same thing, that a person can lose something enormous and continue to grow, that a body can be diminished and a spirit can simultaneously expand, that the most durable form of courage is not the kind that waits for a dramatic moment, but the kind that shows up quietly again and again in the unremarkable ordinary mornings of a life that refuses to be only about what it has lost. That is the hidden psychology of Michael J. Fox, and that is what a human life, at its most honest and its most courageous, actually looks like.